My name is Lee. I started working as a night security guard 2 months ago, patrolling a remote neighborhood on the edge of the city, right next to a dark forest. At first, I hesitated because it was so far out, but they offered free meals, a place to stay, and pretty good pay, so I took the job. At night, strange noises would occasionally come from the nearby forest, the howls of wild animals mixed with the rustling of leaves. At first, it was unsettling and a bit scary, but after a few weeks, I got used to it. Most nights were uneventful, just me driving the patrol car around, making sure no one got in, and that nothing unusual happened. But that all changed one night. Around 10 at night, I was driving the patrol car along the outer roads of the neighborhood. Although it was summer, the night wind was still quite cold. The headlights lit up the edge of the forest, casting long, dark shadows. Suddenly, I heard a low, strange laugh, coming from deep within the woods. The laugh didn't sound real, more like a mix of an animal's cry and something eerily unnatural. I frowned, thinking it might be an owl or some other animal, or maybe just someone playing a prank. But just as I got closer to the edge of the forest, the laughter abruptly stopped. Everything fell silent again, except for the rustling of leaves in the wind. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it into the darkness, but saw nothing, just endless shadows. I continued my patrol. When I got back to the guard room, I checked the surveillance cameras out of habit. The screens showed different parts of the neighborhood one by one. Everything looked normal, but when the camera switched to the area near the forest's edge, my heart skipped a beat. A blurry shadow was moving quickly through the neighborhood. I stared at the screen, trying to see what it was, but the image flashed and the shadow disappeared. I rewound the footage multiple times, but there was nothing there, as if it had never existed. A sense of dread grew inside me, and I couldn't help but shiver. Around midnight, I drove the patrol car through the neighborhood again. As I passed a familiar house, I noticed that the door was slightly open, and there was a faint light coming from inside. According to the rules, residents' doors shouldn't be left open at night. I got out of the car and approached the house, knocking lightly on the door, but there was no answer. A deep, strange noise came from inside, somewhere between a growl and a whisper. My head started to spin, my temples pounding with fear. I pushed the door open slightly, and the sight inside made me freeze. There was dirt and scattered branches all over the floor, like someone had dragged something in from the forest. Suddenly, the noise stopped. I held my breath, sensing something watching me. At that moment, a tall figure slowly emerged from the shadows. His face was pale, his eyes vacant, and he was holding a blood-stained cloth. He gave a chilling smile and whispered,
"The forest will consume everyone."
My heart started pounding, and my legs moved on their own, stepping back. Suddenly, the figure lunged at me. I turned and ran, hearing heavy footsteps getting closer behind me. I ran desperately back to the patrol car, jumped in, and slammed on the gas. The car sped through the night, and in the rearview mirror, I saw the tall figure still chasing me. His speed was unnatural, like that of a beast. My throat was dry, and my palms were drenched in cold sweat. Finally, I reached the guard room, slammed the door shut, and locked it quickly. I collapsed into the chair, trying to catch my breath. But as I picked up the phone to call the police, all I heard was static, and somewhere within it, the sound of low, eerie laughter. I looked back at the surveillance screen, and the shadow appeared again. This time, it stood at the edge of the forest, staring straight into the camera, as if it knew I was watching. The sensation of being watched made the hairs on my neck stand up. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. As dawn approached, I decided I couldn't keep living in fear of the unknown. I had to find out what was happening. I took a flashlight and headed toward the edge of the forest. The air was filled with the stench of decay, and the ground was covered in countless footprints, as if many people had entered the forest but never returned. Suddenly, I heard that familiar, low, hoarse laughter again, coming from deep within the woods. I raised my flashlight, the beam sweeping over the shadows, and I saw them. A group of pale-faced figures slowly emerging from the darkness. Their hollow eyes and twisted smiles, their stiff yet determined steps, all moved toward me. My heart sank as I realized these figures were the very residents who had disappeared from the neighborhood, and now they had become part of the dark forest. I turned and ran as fast as I could towards the neighborhood, the sound of their footsteps and laughter growing louder behind me. Just as I was about to reach the edge of the neighborhood, I felt the ground give way beneath me and fell hard. My flashlight rolled away, the beam pointing straight ahead. At the edge of the flashlight beam, I saw a familiar face, the tall man who had chased me. He smiled slightly and whispered,
Welcome back to the forest.
My consciousness blurred with terror. The only thing I could hear was the laughter echoing in my ears, as if the night would never end.